Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Lucas was a skilled shapeshifter who took great pride in upholding the law. He was the kind of man who made sure criminals were caught and the streets remained safe for everyone. Justice was his purpose and he lived by it. But life has a strange way of testing one's convictions. Despite everything he stood for, Lucas found himself drawn to someone he never should have fallen for, one of the most powerful figures in London's underworld. He tried to resist it, to remind himself who he was and what he represented. Yet the heart, stubborn and unrelenting, doesn't always follow the rules. In the end, Lucas faced a truth harder to accept than any crime he'd ever encountered. Sometimes, even a man of justice can't control where his heart leads him. Chapter 1. Lucas POV. Some called me a vigilante, a man who took justice into his own hands without regard for the rules. Others said I was no different from the criminals I hunted. My enemies saw me as a nuisance, a threat to their control. But me? I just wanted to make a difference. To clean the streets of the people who didn't belong there. And yet, there I was, waking up beside the one man I should never have touched, Adrian Corsetti, a reputed arms dealer and the most powerful drug lord in London. I sighed, staring at the ceiling. Add, hypocrite, to the list of my flaws. Every day, I turned men in for smaller crimes than the ones Adrian had committed. But when it came to him, I looked the other way. If I said it didn't bother me, I'd be lying. It haunted me every night. But as they say, the heart wants what it wants. And when it came to Adrian, my heart was my greatest weakness. Quietly, I slipped out of bed and began gathering my clothes. Besides being a self-proclaimed hero, I owned a martial arts dojo and, surprise, surprise, I was late again. Too many late nights, too many distractions. I had just pulled on my jeans when I heard his voice. "What are you doing?" Adrian asked, his tone still rough from sleep. "I'm late," I replied, glancing around for my phone. "Where is it?" "Looking for this?" He held it up, smirking as he dangled it just out of reach. I knew that look. "Adrian, I don't have time for this. Hand it over." "Just one kiss," he teased, "and it's yours." I rolled my eyes. I think I can manage without my phone for a day. I grabbed my wallet instead and turned to leave. But before I could reach the door, strong arms wrapped around my waist and pulled me back. In one swift move, I found myself on the bed again, Adrian leaning over me with that familiar grin. "Stay with me today," he murmured. "You know I can't," I said, though my voice softened. "Some of us actually need to work to pay the bills." "Let that David kid handle things for you," he countered, pressing a gentle kiss to my cheek. "I just want you here." "That's what you said yesterday." "That's because I love having you around," he said quietly. And just like that, my resolve faltered. Adrian Corsetti, the same man who could command an army with a single word, was now looking down at me with a softness no one else ever saw. That hidden tenderness was what drew me to him from the start. I sighed, finally giving in. Maybe I could take today off too. He smiled, and for a moment, the world outside his walls didn't matter. Hours later, Adrian was back in his study, completely focused, his tone all business. "No, tell him the deadline moved up. I want it here by 6 tomorrow evening," he said firmly into the phone. I sat across from him, my own attention buried in a case file. My contact at the agency had dropped off a new one, a 19-year-old woman, the victim of a horrific crime. The suspect had slipped through the cracks due to lack of evidence. They wanted me to find him and get the truth out of him. My methods weren't exactly by the book, but they worked. Across the room, Adrian's voice deepened. "I don't care what Harris says. I want it done by 6. Despite the harshness of his words, his face remained calm, almost emotionless. That quiet intensity of his could terrify anyone on the other end of a phone call. He hung up, only for another call to come through. "Corsetti," he answered smoothly. After a brief pause, he said, "Send him in." Two large guards entered moments later, dragging in a disheveled man between them. The man shouted angrily in another language, struggling against their grip. When they reached Adrian's desk, the guards released him and stepped back. Adrian studied the man in silence. Then, without a word, he reached beneath his desk and pulled out a gun. My pulse quickened. For all I knew about Adrian's past, seeing him like this, the criminal side of him fully unveiled, unsettled me in a way I couldn't ignore. "You really thought you could betray me and get away with it?" Adrian asked quietly. The man froze. When Adrian raised the gun, panic filled his eyes. "Wait, please, I can explain." "Adrian," I interrupted, stepping forward. "You can't just shoot him." His eyes flicked toward me. "Lucas, stay out of this. You don't want to interfere with my work." "Don't give me that," I snapped. "You can't solve everything with violence. If he's guilty, take him to the authorities. That's how justice works." For a long moment, no one moved. Then, to my surprise, Adrian sighed and lowered the weapon. "Take him out," he told the guards. "I'll deal with him later." When they left, he turned back to me. "You know what kind of organization I run, Lucas?" I answered to no one. "Then stop talking to me like I'm one of your men," I said firmly. "I won't stand by and watch you hurt people, no matter who they are." Instead of anger, a faint smile curved his lips. "That's what I admire about you," he said softly. "You're not afraid to stand up to me." "Yeah, well, I'm not most people," I replied. His hand reached up to touch my face gently. "And that's one of the reasons I low." The sound of my phone cut him off. He pulled back instantly, his expression hardening as he turned toward his desk. I picked up the phone, recognizing the caller ID instantly, Lakin. It wasn't surprising that Adrian's mood changed. He hated when Lakin called, the man who used to be the love of my life, before breaking my heart less than a year ago. "I'll take this outside," I said quietly. Adrian didn't respond. He was already typing on his computer, shutting himself off. I sighed and stepped into the hall, pressing the button to answer the call. "Hey, Lakin, what's going on?" Chapter 2. Lucas's PO. Adrian's men were following me again. Aside from the fact that my partner was a killer, this was the thing we argued about most. A few weeks into our relationship, he'd assigned 2 men to look after me. He called them backup. I called them a nuisance. I'm a grown man. Why would I need 2 bodyguards shadowing me every day? When I asked Adrian to dismiss them, he'd only said, "You won't even know they're there." As if 2 hulking figures weren't obvious at a glance. I wondered if they actually thought I couldn't spot them from a mile off. Either way, I felt insulted. They did more harm than good, and in the end I'd probably end up saving them instead of the other way round. I sighed as I crossed the street toward my apartment. There was no point in arguing further. Months of discussions hadn't changed Adrian's mind. I should be grateful they cared enough to keep me safe, but I'd handled worse opponents with less fuss. Their presence felt like a relic of his possessive way of loving me. I turned the key in the lock, pushed the door open, and took the stairs 2 at a time to my makeshift office. Playtime with Adrian was over. It was time to work. I moved the stack of books on the top shelf aside and accessed the stainless steel in-wall safe hidden behind them. I punched in the code and the lock clicked open. For jobs like this, I liked to observe first, habits, routines, associates. It gave me leverage. If persuasion didn't work, I had other means to encourage cooperation. I'd never claimed to be a stickler for procedure. I claimed to get results. I pulled out the binoculars and slipped my Glock into the small pouch at my belt. I hated guns, always had, and carrying one didn't make me a killer. It was a precaution. After locking up, I grabbed an apple from the bowl on the kitchen counter and bit into it as I walked out into the street. The juice dripped down my chin and I smiled despite everything. A little later, I parked across from Alfred O'Grady's flat and watched. Alfred was ordinary looking, 5'7", a little pudgy, a scruffy beard, small beady eyes. He slipped a donut into his mouth, tugged on his windbreaker, and drove away. I followed at a discreet distance. An hour later, he pulled up outside a deserted warehouse and stepped out. The place looked run down, graffiti on the walls, broken windows, the kind of place people used when they didn't want to be noticed. He hesitated at the door, looking around like someone expecting trouble. I checked my watch, a little past 7, and felt that familiar tug in my gut. Whatever he was up to, it didn't look good. He knocked 3 times. The door opened to a bald, heavily tattooed man with a firearm visible at his side. This wasn't a friendly meet. When the tattooed man looked my way, a jeep rolled by, stopped a few meters ahead of my car, and parked squarely in view. My breath hitched as 2 familiar figures climbed out, Adrian's bodyguards. The tattooed man barked in a sharp voice, "You brought the cops?" The atmosphere turned electric. My target backed away, hands raised. Then shots rang out. The man slumped. Panic exploded around me as more gunfire cracked toward the street. One of my bodyguards went down, hit in the leg. My car window shattered under the spray and glass rained into the interior. I ducked, kept my head low, and tried to start the engine. Adrenaline screamed through me. If I got out of this alive, there would be questions, and there would be consequences. Above all, I needed to get somewhere safe and fast. Adrian's POV. "You're going soft, Adrian." Marcus's voice filled the room. It was a familiar accusation. I'd heard it more times than I cared to count. I poured whiskey into 2 glasses and handed one to him. "Yes, Marcus, you've mentioned that a few times," I said lightly, though I kept my expression steady. "You have no time for playing house with that kid," Marcus went on. "More important things need your focus." He drank deeply, eyes hard. "Lucas hasn't changed that," I replied calmly. "He isn't a distraction." Marcus's jaw tightened. "He could destroy everything we've built. What happens if things go wrong? If he learns too much or feels betrayed? Then what?" "We've taken precautions," I said. "No paper trails, influence where it counts. We're careful." I tried to be reassuring, but Marcus slammed his glass down, whiskey splashing across the table. Scotty, my younger brother, spoke up from where he sat near the desk. "He's in love, Marcus. Why can't you be happy for him?" Marcus scoffed. "Huh? Adrian doesn't fall in love, he falls into lust. When he tires of someone, he discards them. And you, while you're distracted, you could be careless. Don't let him compromise us." Scotty's bored retort cracked the tension for a moment. I smiled despite myself. Scotty had always been my heartbeat, the kid who still looked up to me the way he had when we were younger. We'd clung to each other after Mom and Dad died. I'd taken it as my duty to protect him. Watching him defend me now felt like a quiet, precious victory. Marcus's voice rose again. "Get rid of him or I will." I rose slowly. Marcus and I had always fought hard for our position, but pulling away the one thing that made me feel ordinary felt like cutting off my own hand. Lucas wasn't just another conquest. He made me want things I didn't say aloud. "Don't make threats," I said, setting my glass down. "I know what I'm doing." Marcus's stare was unrelenting. He believed in extremes. I believed in a different balance. But the warning was clear. Keep Lucas safe, keep the business safe, or face the fallout. "Last time I checked, I don't answer to you," I began, and when Marcus moved to interrupt, I held up a hand to stop him. "I'm the one who got us here. I took the risks while you stayed safe in your world. The fact that you're here with me now doesn't change that you work for me, not the other way around." Marcus's jaw tightened, but his eyes stayed fixed on mine. I kept my voice cool, the anger barely tucked beneath the surface. "Lucas deserves respect. If you make him feel unwelcome, you'll have me to answer to. Is that understood?" There was a long beat, then Marcus nodded. I let the tension ease, though it left a sour taste. I loved Marcus. He was family, but sometimes he drove me crazy. Scotty watched the exchange with worried eyes. He'd always been convinced Marcus's temper would one day go too far. I gave Scotty a small smile and reached to pat Marcus's shoulder, trying to soften the room. "I won't lose focus," I told my twin, letting a little warmth into my tone. Before I sat down I added, quiet but sincere, "And despite what you think, I do love Lucas." The room shifted at my words. It was true that I'd had many partners in the past, people I moved on from without a second thought. But Lucas was different. Pinning down what made him different felt impossible to explain fully. You had to feel it. Lucas had become a kind of clean air in my life. Not innocent, not naive, but something that unsettled the dust in my lungs. We'd met under violent circumstances. He'd been brought in during an operation where my man had been interrogated. That man had confessed and later met a bitter end. From our first clash, a mix of insults and stubbornness, I was hooked. He stood firm even when he knew who I was. He'd insulted Marcus with the kind of audacity that surprised me. Over time, we spoke without weapons between us. I watched him, learned him. When I found out he was a shapeshifter, it was the last unexpected thing that sealed my fascination. He was my longest relationship, and he was the first time I wanted more than the usual appetite to pass. I drifted away from Marcus and peered over Scotty's shoulder at the computer screen. Scotty had been tasked with testing the security of a contacts network, a little job that might put some extra money in our pockets. It wasn't the cleanest way to get funds, but then our business rarely ran tidy. I was still leaning there when shouting came from the hallway. The double doors to the study burst open and Lucas stumbled in. He looked like he'd been through a storm. His shirt was stained with blood and a long cut marked his cheek. Smaller nicks dotted his arms. He moved with the exhausted stiffness of someone who'd been pushed too far. One of Adrian's guards trailed behind him, obviously wounded and breathing shallowly. Scotty pushed back from the desk and came to stand near me. Marcus drifted closer, his expression unreadable. "What happened to you three?" I demanded, scanning them. My voice was steady but sharp. "Your men ruined my operation," Lucas snapped. His jaw was tight, his eyes fierce. "They followed me, blew my cover and got my target killed." I raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "They weren't supposed to be there," Lucas said. "They made a mistake and now the man who was going to face justice for what he did is dead." He dragged a hand through his hair and sank into a chair, reaching for the drink on the table and drinking it down like he needed to steady himself. "Put him in a hospital," Scotty urged, nodding toward the wounded guard. Lucas waved him off. He refused. "We don't have time." I studied Lucas's tired face. The anger in him was tempered by exhaustion. I reached to lift his chin to get a better look at his wound, but he pushed my hand away and finished his story. When he was done, the sequence of events was clear. My guards had turned up at the wrong place at the wrong time, been spotted, and chaos had followed. How could they not know he was on a stakeout? I asked the guard who'd been assigned to Lucas. "You've been shadowing him for months. You should know how he works." The man stammered that it was a misunderstanding. They saw a car in a deserted street and acted on instinct. Lucas snorted. "They wouldn't have known. I've been able to slip by them before. I told you to get rid of them. If you'd listened, none of this would have happened." I took that in. The wound was on us. My men had failed at their task. It was unacceptable. Scotty's voice was small. "Please, sir, he needs a doctor." The injured man's partner begged again as he clutched his side. I stepped back to my desk and, in a move that made the room hold its breath, reached for my sidearm. The moment felt heavy and terrible. The decision was mine to make. I walked back and crouched beside the wounded guard. "He won't make it through the night," the partner whispered. I shook my head, feeling the cold clarity of the world I had built around me. This was not the place for a hospital and not the moment for half measures. I fired one clean shot. It was quick, clinical, a final mercy in a life already gone. Gasps filled the room. Lucas cried out, "Adrian?" Marcus stared at me, a storm behind his eyes. Scotty looked away, stunned. "He wouldn't have made it," I said, voice flat. "Do not mourn what could not be saved." I turned to the remaining guard. "You're dismissed. Leave." He fled without a word. I watched him go, then sat beside Lucas, who had wrapped his face in his hands. He looked hollowed out, worn by the night's violence. I reached to touch his shoulder, but he pushed away and stood. "I'm going home," he said quietly. "I'll take you," I offered, but he shook his head. "I'm fine," he answered, the tone not angry but drained, and he left before I could argue. Scotty nodded once to me, understanding, then shifted. In a blink he became a large gray wolf. A shapeshifter's reflexive change. Then, with a roll of his eyes at Marcus's disapproval, he shrank down to an unassuming stray dog and bounded out the door after Lucas. Left alone with Marcus and the hum of the study, I sat at the computer and began to search for a way to make things right. Maybe I could pull evidence together that would quiet Lucas and help the family find closure. Maybe I could fix a mistake my men had made. As I worked, Marcus's earlier words echoed in my ears. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was getting soft. But as I thought of Lucas's tired face and the way he'd walked away, tenderness and guilt warred in me. Softness, perhaps, but softness that tasted like fear of losing something I was no longer willing to surrender. Chapter 3. Lucas POV. I had just stepped out of the shower, water still dripping down my skin, when the doorbell rang. "Scotty, can you get that?" I called out, grabbing a towel. No answer. The bell rang again. I sighed. Scotty could tune out the world when the TV was on. Wrapping the towel around my waist, I made my way downstairs. Sure enough, he was sprawled across my couch, munching on chips and staring at the screen like nothing else existed. "Don't you have a key?" I asked as I opened the door, and there stood Adrian, smiling like he owned the place. "Yeah, but considering how you left my place last night, I figured ringing would be smarter than just walking in," he said. Then he brushed past me and stepped inside anyway. Typical Adrian. He rang the bell but barged in regardless. "If I didn't know for sure that my brother was as straight as they come, I'd be having doubts about your loyalty, Lucas," Adrian teased, his eyes flicking over my towel-wrapped form before glancing toward Scotty. I rolled my eyes. Very funny. Scotty finally noticed us. "Oh hey," he said with a grin. He had followed me home the previous night, stealthy as ever, and I hadn't realized until I was at my door. At this point, his staying over was almost routine. "Don't you have a home to get to?" Adrian asked him. Scotty shot back without missing a beat. "Don't you?" Adrian raised a brow. "I'm standing in mine. Last I checked, you have a system to hack into." Scotty sighed, tossing the half-empty chip bag onto the table. Cheeky as ever. "Fine, I'll go hang with Marcus." As he passed, Adrian reached up and ruffled his hair. "Remember, we have a meeting tonight," Adrian said. Scotty nodded and left, closing the door behind him. The air shifted slightly, quieter, heavier. When I turned back, Adrian's playful expression was gone. "You okay?" he asked softly. His tone was careful, as if unsure how close he could step after last night. I could have snapped, but his eyes told me enough. He meant well. "Yeah, I'm fine," I replied, turning toward the stairs. I was freezing and the towel wasn't helping. Adrian followed me up without invitation and sat on the edge of my bed as I searched for clothes. "What's that?" I asked, nodding toward the manila envelope in his hand. He looked down at it briefly. "Evidence," he said simply. "I know it might not help much now, but I found proof against the guy from your case. I figured his victim's family deserves closure." I stopped mid-motion and looked at him. "You went through all that trouble, why?" He met my eyes. "Because I know how angry you were about what happened. And I wanted to make things right." There was something in his expression, uncertainty mixed with sincerity, that softened me. Adrian wasn't one for grand apologies, so this gesture meant more than he realized. Without thinking, I walked closer, stopping between his knees, and brushed my fingers through his dark hair. He tilted his head up toward me, his hands resting gently at my waist. "I was upset, yeah," I admitted. "But it wasn't your fault. You couldn't control what your men did." He closed his eyes briefly, forehead pressing lightly against my abdomen. A silent apology, maybe even exhaustion showing through his calm. My fingers threaded through his hair again, an unspoken truce hanging in the air between us. "Adrian," I murmured, unsure what else to say. He didn't answer, but when his hand came up to clasp mine, I could feel the emotion he wasn't voicing, guilt, care, affection, all tangled up in silence. We stayed like that for a long moment, the room quiet except for the soft rhythm of our breathing. The tension between us wasn't sharp anymore. It was tender, fragile, the kind that said too much without words. Later, we found ourselves lying side by side on my bed. The air had calmed. Adrian rested his head on the pillow beside mine, tracing slow circles on my chest with his fingertips. I stared at the ceiling, the weight of everything. The case, last night, us, pressing down quietly. "I love you," he whispered suddenly. His voice was low but steady. When I turned my head to look at him, his eyes didn't waver. They were full of certainty. It wasn't the first time he'd said it. And like every other time, I couldn't bring myself to say it back. Not because I didn't care. I did, deeply, but because my heart was too complicated for simple answers. I took a breath and looked away. "What would you do?" I asked softly, "if I asked you to stop killing people?" He didn't answer right away. The silence stretched until I turned to face him again. His gaze was steady, though shadowed by something I couldn't name. "Lucas," he said quietly, "you know I can't do that. It's part of what keeps everything balanced in my world. It's about power, control." "Then how can you say you love me?" I asked, my voice breaking slightly, "if you can't give up something like that?" He sat up, resting on one arm. "Just because I can't stop doesn't mean I don't love you with everything I have. When I loved Lakin," I said before I could stop myself, "I would have done anything for him." The name hung in the air like a ghost. Adrian's jaw tightened, the pain flashing in his eyes unmistakable. I shouldn't have brought Lakin up. I knew it would hurt him, but I needed to make him understand. Adrian was strong, unyielding, and sometimes the only way to move him was through pressure. He exhaled, frustrated. "What if I asked you to stop talking to him? To forget he ever existed, would you do it?" I turned sharply toward him. "That's different." "Is it?" His tone was calm but cold. "You're asking me to change who I am. I'm just asking you to let go of someone who's already gone." I hesitated. "I'm asking you to stop hurting people. You're asking me to erase a memory. That's not the same." He looked at me for a long time, unreadable. Then, softly, he asked, "If Lakin walked through that door right now, would you leave me?" The question hit me harder than I expected. My chest tightened. I couldn't meet his eyes. "Don't ask me that," I whispered, because I didn't know the answer. I couldn't lie and say no, but I couldn't say yes either. The silence between us said everything. Adrian looked at me, the man he loved, and saw a truth neither of us wanted to admit. Sometimes, love wasn't enough to change who we were. Lucas's POV. "If I didn't care about you, I'd still be chasing after him, trying to win him back," I said quietly after a long pause. But deep down, I knew that would have been pointless. Lakin was a werewolf, already bonded to his mate, and breaking a connection like that was nearly impossible. So I had let him go. Then I met Adrian, and I was trying, really trying, to move forward. I wasn't in love with him, but I was getting close. "You didn't answer my question," Adrian said softly, breaking the silence. I kept my eyes fixed on the wall, refusing to look at him. A full minute passed before he spoke again. "I'll do it," he said at last. "I'll try, but in my world, I can't promise anything. Just tell me you'll let him go, Lucas. Please. That's the only way you'll ever move on." His hand rested gently on my arm, his tone almost pleading. I froze and turned to him, my voice colder than I intended. "Don't ask me to choose between you and him, Adrian. You won't like my answer." My heart thudded painfully in my chest, but I meant what I said. My connection with Lakin, even if distant, was all I had left of that part of my life, and I wasn't ready to give it up. Adrian stared at me for a moment, then swallowed hard and leaned back against the bed, staring at the ceiling. His lips trembled slightly before he bit down on them, trying to hold himself together. Guilt hit me like a wave. People often forgot that beneath his hard exterior and criminal reputation, Adrian was still human, a man in love. Hearing something like that from me must have cut deep. I should have known better. With a heavy sigh, I turned toward him and buried my face in his shoulder, silently asking for forgiveness. When he wrapped his arm around me without hesitation, the guilt only deepened. He forgave too easily, even when I didn't deserve it. Adrian's POV. "Ugh!" I growled, kicking a metal container out of my way. The clang echoed across the warehouse floor. Anger boiled inside me, so sharp I could almost feel it vibrating in my bones. Why was I doing this to myself? Why was I letting someone tear me apart from the inside out? What was the point of loving someone who couldn't love me back? I kicked another crate. It crashed to the ground, rolling away. Forget him, I muttered through gritted teeth. I don't need him. I don't need anyone. I'd lived alone for years before Lucas came along. Cold, steady, untouchable. But now I was a wreck. When had I stopped being the feared one? The one people looked up to, the one they feared, and become someone who fell apart over a few harsh words. He made me weak. I hated it. I hated him for having that kind of power over me, and yet, I couldn't stop loving him. Frustration built until I turned and slammed my fist into the wall. Pain shot through my knuckles, but I didn't care. Maybe I wanted it to hurt. Maybe it was easier to deal with something physical than the ache inside my chest. How had I become like this? I'd faced worse, gunfire, betrayal, torture, and survived every time. But love? Love had undone me completely. I took a shaky breath, leaning against the wall. The truth was simple, painful, and undeniable. I loved Lucas, even if it broke me. I'd spent the whole day pretending, laughing, smiling, acting as if everything was fine. But it wasn't. I was falling apart on the inside. Still, I knew that by morning, I'd pull myself together again. Always did. I sat down on the edge of the rooftop, resting my elbows on my knees as the night wind brushed past. The city lights blurred in my vision. I didn't have to look up to know who had opened the door behind me. My brothers always knew when I was upset. Scotty sat beside me first, then Marcus joined on my other side. I shifted to make space for them. "What's wrong, Adrian?" "You missed the meeting," Scotty said gently. "Yeah, we'll deal with that tomorrow," I murmured, keeping my gaze fixed on the glowing skyline. Scotty waited a few seconds before nudging me. "Are you going to tell us what's going on, or do we have to force it out of you?" I sighed. There was no point in hiding it, they'd drag it out of me anyway. "I don't know how to make him love me, Scotty," I whispered. "I don't know what to do anymore." As expected, Marcus muttered a curse under his breath, but before I could react, Scotty pulled me gently against him, letting me lean back on his chest. The warmth of his gesture nearly cracked my composure. "You know how Lucas is," Scotty murmured. "He'll come around eventually." I nodded slightly, though I didn't believe it. Marcus exhaled heavily. "So this is what it's about? You're up here sulking because he doesn't love you?" His voice was dry, but there was a faint hint of concern beneath the teasing tone. "Don't start, Marcus," Scotty said sharply. But I didn't say anything. I just stared out into the city, my heart heavy and raw. For a moment, the three of us sat in silence. Then Marcus did something I didn't expect. He reached over, ruffled my hair, and pressed a quick kiss to my forehead, just like he used to when we were kids. My throat tightened instantly. "You're only hurting yourself by holding on to him," Marcus said quietly. "The sooner you let him go, the better." He stood and walked away, the door slamming behind him. Scotty and I sat there for a while, listening to the distant hum of the city. After a long silence, he spoke. "Maybe he's right, Adrian. Lucas is my friend, but maybe it's time you moved on." I drew in a shaky breath and whispered, "I can't." Scotty tightened his arms around me in quiet understanding. Lucas's POV. It was just past midnight when I heard someone pounding on the front door. Groaning, I pushed myself out of bed, rubbing my eyes. "Who on earth is knocking at this hour?" I muttered, half asleep as I stumbled toward the stairs. "I'm coming," I called out, yawning. When I reached the door, I flicked on the porch light and turned the knob. But before I could even react, something, or rather, someone, grabbed me by the collar and slammed me hard against the opposite wall. The air left my lungs. My hands flew up to push the grip off my neck as I gasped for breath. When my vision cleared, my heart skipped a beat. Marcus stood there, his eyes dark and furious. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't a friendly visit. Chapter 4. Lucas's POV. I couldn't breathe. Marcus's grip around my neck tightened, his strength far beyond mine. I clawed at his hands, desperate to free myself, but my vision was already blurring from the lack of oxygen. A part of me wanted to laugh at the irony. This was the exact moment when all those years of martial arts training were supposed to pay off. So, following instinct, I raised my arm and brought my elbow down hard against his forearm, just like I'd taught my students countless times. Unfortunately, I had never told them that the move wouldn't work on a level 5 shapeshifter determined to choke the life out of you. When that failed, I lifted both legs off the ground, wrapping them around his, then reached up and grabbed his neck, trying to push him off balance. It worked. He released me and I fell to the floor, gasping for air. But he wasn't finished. Marcus yanked me up by the arm and shoved me across the room, sending me sprawling onto the couch. Before I could recover, he grabbed my shirt collar and glared down at me, his eyes burning with anger. I kicked out with my leg, hitting him squarely in the chest. The impact made him stumble back, just enough for me to swing myself off the couch. I was about to tackle him, until he reached into his coat and pulled out a gun. I froze instantly. My hands shot up in surrender, my heart pounding wildly. "Wait, hold on," I said quickly, trying to calm him down, though I had no idea what was happening. Sure, Marcus and I didn't exactly get along, but I never thought he'd go this far. "Sit down," Marcus said, his voice sharp and commanding. I obeyed, slowly lowering myself back onto the couch, keeping my hands raised. "Marcus, I know we've had our differences, but this is crazy." Didn't I say quiet? His tone was calm, almost too calm, and that made it worse. I fell silent. Marcus took the seat opposite me, his gun still trained on me, eyes cold and assessing. "My brother might be too blinded by his feelings for you to see it, but I'm not," he said darkly. "I see exactly what kind of person you are." I stayed quiet, barely breathing. "What do you really want from him?" he asked. I frowned, confused. "I don't want anything. I'm with him because I care about him." Marcus arched a brow, then actually laughed, a low, bitter sound. "You care about him?" he repeated. "If you actually cared, I wouldn't be here right now." He leaned forward slightly, his expression hardening. "For some reason, my brother thinks he's in love with you. He's been ignoring the business he built from nothing, everything we worked for, just to focus on you. And this is how you repay him." His words hit harder than I expected. So Adrian had told him what happened. That explained why Marcus was here. I thought Adrian had forgiven me for what I said earlier, but clearly, I'd been wrong. I hadn't realized how deeply my words had cut him. I clenched my jaw and looked away. "Don't you have anything to say?" Marcus asked again. But what could I say? My silence said it all. I glanced toward the phone across the room, wanting to call Adrian, to fix this somehow, but what could I even say? Marcus being here told me everything I needed to know. Adrian had been hurting, and I was the reason. "You don't deserve him," Marcus said finally, his tone low but firm. He stood, holstering his weapon, and looked down at me one last time. "I'll say this once. Either you treat him right, or you walk away. Because if you hurt him again, I won't hold back next time." And I believed him. When he left, I just sat there, motionless, hollow, ashamed. His words echoed in my head long after the sound of his footsteps faded. He was right. I didn't deserve Adrian. Adrian's POV. "You guys didn't have to treat me to breakfast." "I'm fine really," I insisted, though my brothers clearly didn't believe me. That's how I ended up sitting in a restaurant I'd never been to before, eating pancakes and bacon for breakfast while Scotty chatted nonstop across the table. "And that's why I broke up with her," Scotty finished proudly. I shook my head, amused. "You're too picky. If you keep dumping people for little things, you'll run out of options." He shrugged. "What can I say? I want the perfect match. If I could mix 5 different people, each with 2 traits I like, I'd finally have the complete package. Too bad no one's willing to share." I laughed, while Marcus simply gave him an unimpressed look. "Just make sure you're being careful," I said. Scotty groaned. "You already gave me that talk when I was 10, remember?" I reached over to ruffle his hair, but he ducked away and stuffed another bite of toast into his mouth. "What about you, Mark?" Scotty asked suddenly, grinning. "Any special guy in your life lately?" Marcus sighed. "My life isn't exactly built for relationships, and neither is yours." Scotty smirked. "One day you'll meet your perfect guy, and when you do, I'll be there to say, "I told you so." I chuckled. Yeah, that'll be the day, Marcus actually falling in love. For once, Marcus didn't respond, which only made Scotty and me laugh harder. As they teased each other, I found myself smiling. Surprisingly, the conversation didn't hurt like I thought it would. I'd woken up this morning with a clear mind and a little hope. Lakin and his mate were bonded for life, something unbreakable. Lucas would have to move on eventually. And maybe, just maybe, I'd be waiting when he did. I was an optimist. And for someone like Lucas, I didn't mind waiting. "So, Marcus," I asked after a pause, "just for fun, what would your perfect guy be like?" "This is ridiculous," he muttered. Scotty elbowed him. "Come on, it's just for fun." Marcus sighed, then gave in. "Fine. He'd probably be smaller than me. Not too serious, but not overly dramatic either. Intelligent. Easy to talk to. Someone real." Scotty grinned. "If I find someone like that, I'll let you know." "No thanks," Marcus said dryly, but a small smile tugged at his lips. Scotty reached over to ruffle his hair, and Marcus leaned away. "Hands off, Casanova," he said, laughing. Scotty winked at me. I couldn't help but laugh too. You just had to love these guys. Lucas's POV. This must be hard for Thomas. I just hope Gray gives him a chance. I typed before hitting send. I was messaging Lakin while loading grocery bags into the back seat of my car. Ever since Marcus's unexpected visit last night, I'd been thinking a lot. His words had forced me to take a long, hard look at myself. I finally saw how unfair I'd been to Adrian, the one man who had loved me despite everything. Sitting there afterward, guilt had settled deep in my chest. So, I made a decision. I was going to change. I was going to make things right. Starting with dinner. Tonight I'd cook for him, a small gesture, but one that came from the heart. When we'd spoken earlier this morning, he told me he was out having breakfast with his brothers. I hadn't gotten the chance to apologize properly, which was probably for the best. Some things are better said face to face. I shut the car door, climbed into the driver's seat, and sighed. I couldn't wait to get my own car back from the shop. For now, I was stuck driving one of Scotty's flashy sports cars, something that didn't quite suit me. I was more of a comfort over luxury type of guy, except when it came to clothes, of course. As I started the engine, my phone beeped again. Lakin had replied. He's actually starting to come around, but it's a slow process. Let's just hope for the best. I typed back quickly before pulling out of the parking lot. That's all we can do. I'm hitting the road, talk later. Poor Thomas. Maybe I should explain this whole Lakin story. It started about 2 years ago when I took a trip to the US with some friends. I'd lived there as a kid, so going back was a little nostalgic. America really is a beautiful place. Anyway, being the reckless fool I was, I got myself into trouble trying to prove a point. I ended up trapped in the woods, nearly attacked by a pack of rogue wolves, when a man named Victor Obeda, alpha of a local werewolf pack, saved my life. In my gratitude, I made a mistake. I told him I owed him everything. And like a fool, I swore loyalty to him. Victor was pleased. He later assigned me a task, to watch over another alpha's mate, a young man named Lakin. Victor claimed that Lakin's alpha, Carson, had taken something from him and deserved punishment. It sounded simple. Observe the mate, report back, if ordered, bring him to Victor. Only, things didn't go as planned. Because I fell for him. Just by watching him, I could tell his heart was kind, pure, even. And that alone disarmed me. Meeting him in person only made things worse. I wanted him to love me back, even though he already belonged to someone else. Foolish, I know. When the final order came, to eliminate him, I couldn't do it. Instead, I helped him escape. Months later, against all odds, I became friends with Lakin, Carson, and their beta, Thomas. Now, Thomas was facing his own struggles. His mate was human, and not very accepting of who he was. That's what Lakin and I had been talking about earlier. Drama, pure and simple. Poor Thomas. KK, Lakin finally texted. I glanced at the screen and tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. Adrian was probably out for the day, so my plan was simple: get to his house, start dinner, and surprise him when he returned. I still had his spare key, so getting in wasn't a problem. I wanted to show him how much I appreciated him and how sorry I was. Even if I'd spoken the truth before, I could have said it with more care. 15 minutes later, I stepped into his house. The silence that greeted me was thick and still. I nudged the door shut with my foot and carried the groceries into the kitchen, setting them on the counter. It had been a while since I'd cooked here. As I scanned the familiar space, I couldn't help but smile. Tonight had to go right. Adrian's POV. Today had been one of those rare, peaceful days. No meetings. No stress. Just a calm morning spent with my brothers and a quiet afternoon finishing some light paperwork. It felt good. Now, I was at a bar, sharing a drink with James, an old friend who'd just flown into London. We didn't see each other often, so catching up felt nice. "I'll never understand what you see in men, Adrian," James said with a teasing grin, glancing toward a group of women nearby. "The world is full of beautiful women." "And I'll never understand what you see in women," I shot back, laughing. "But trust me, once you experience love with the right man, you might just change your mind." James chuckled, raising his glass. "To beautiful men and women." I laughed and clinked my glass against his. He was clearly tipsy. Lucas's POV. Everything was ready. Dinner was plated, candles flickered softly across the table, and the room smelled faintly of herbs and spices. I'd even taken the time to dress up, a rare thing for me. All I needed now was for Adrian to walk through that door. I tried calling him a few times earlier, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I assumed he was busy, so I decided to wait. And wait. When the candles began to melt halfway down and the food started to cool, I sighed and reached over to blow them out one by one. That's when I heard it, tires crunching on gravel outside. My head snapped up. He was here. A smile tugged at my lips. Adrian's POV. James was completely out of it. I couldn't help laughing as I helped him toward the car. For someone who hated losing control, he'd certainly let loose tonight. "Toss. Somewhere around here," he slurred. "Just toss me in a taxi. I'll figure it out." "Nonsense," I said, steadying him. "You're staying with me tonight. It's safer." He mumbled something unintelligible, too far gone to argue. I guided him into the passenger seat, making sure he didn't bump his head on the way in, then walked around to the driver's side. That's when I noticed my phone on the floor. No wonder I hadn't gotten any calls. I picked it up, slipped it into my jacket, and started the car. Lucas's POV. I'd called Scotty earlier to ask if he knew where Adrian was. He mentioned a possible business meeting, which made sense. Adrian was always busy. Maybe I should have told him about the dinner plans in advance. The food was now cold, the candles nearly gone. I let out a breath, leaning back in my chair, just as headlights flashed across the living room wall. He was finally home. I straightened up immediately, the faintest smile touching my lips. Adrian's POV. Laughing, I helped James toward the front door. He could barely stand, and his weight was almost too much for me to manage. "Come on," I said, fumbling with my keys. "We're almost there." The lock clicked and I pushed the door open. Lucas's POV. I froze. Adrian stumbled through the door, laughing. His arm wrapped tightly around another man's waist. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The sight hit me harder than Marcus's grip ever could. All the effort, all the planning, the hope that maybe, just maybe, we could fix things. Gone in an instant. My heart sank as one thought echoed in my head. I guess my apology came a little too late. Chapter 5. Adrian's POV. What do you mean? Where are you going? I asked, turning fully toward him, confusion lacing my voice. It didn't take long for you to find a replacement, did it? Lucas said coldly, his eyes dark with emotion. I frowned. What are you talking about? Before I could say more, I felt James stir beside me, chuckling softly at something I didn't catch. Then it all clicked. Wait a second, Lucas. This isn't what you think, I began, but he cut me off sharply. I don't even want to hear it, he said, his voice tight with pain. After everything, I suppose I deserve this, right? All those words about love, was that all a lie? Just something to say? His words struck me harder than I expected. I could see the anger in his eyes, but beneath it was something deeper, hurt. "Lucas, please, it's not what it looks like," I said, stepping forward, my hand reaching for his arm. He recoiled instantly, as if my touch burned. "So now you think I'm a fool?" he said, his voice breaking as he turned toward the door. "I can't do this right now." Cold night air rushed in as he opened the door. I reached out and grabbed his arm gently, refusing to let go. His eyes turned toward me, fierce and wounded, and for a brief moment, neither of us spoke. Lucas's POV. "Come on, let's get you to bed," Adrian said to the man beside him, laughing softly. I froze. He hadn't seen me yet, but the scene before me was enough. My heart dropped. After everything I had done to try and make things right, after all the guilt I carried, here he was, his arm around someone else, smiling like none of it mattered. I told myself I had no right to feel hurt, but that didn't make it any easier. My chest tightened as I watched them stumble inside, their laughter echoing through the house. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay still, but anger and heartbreak surged together in a way I couldn't control. Maybe this was what I deserved. Still, I couldn't watch any longer. I grabbed my jacket from the kitchen stool, the keys rattling in the pocket. The sound made Adrian turn suddenly. His eyes widened the moment he saw me, surprise flashing across his face before it softened into a small smile. But to me, that smile felt like mockery, like he was showing off his newest companion. I took a slow breath and turned toward the door. "Lucas? Wait, where are you going?" he asked, stepping forward. I shook my head. "I should have seen this coming," I muttered quietly. Every word hurt. Every step away from him felt like leaving behind something I hadn't realized mattered so much. I had told myself I wasn't in love, not yet at least, but the ache in my chest told me otherwise. A year ago, I might have stayed and argued, shouted until the pain dulled. But not this time. I'd learned what heartbreak could do, and I wasn't going through it again. So, I lifted my chin, trying to hold on to whatever dignity I had left, and walked toward the door. I told myself that walking away was strength, not surrender. But deep down, it felt like breaking all over again. Adrian's POV. The last person I expected to see in my kitchen that night was Lucas. He never came over unannounced, which made his sudden appearance all the more startling. When I heard the faint rattle of keys, I turned and saw him standing there, his expression unreadable. Relief washed over me, followed by confusion. I smiled, instinctively tightening my hold on James to keep him steady, but before I could even greet Lucas, he turned, snatched his jacket, and strode past me without a word. "Lucas?" I called after him. No response. "Wait, where are you going?" I asked again, my confusion deepening. He stopped at the door, his back to me. "I should have known this would happen," he said quietly, his tone heavy with disappointment. "What are you talking about?" I asked, taking a step forward. When he turned to face me, his expression was cold and distant. "It didn't take long for you to find someone new, did it?" he said flatly. I blinked, stunned. "What? That's not true." Then James chuckled again beside me, completely unaware of the tension in the room. I finally understood what Lucas must have thought. "Wait, Lucas, this isn't what it looks like. James is just..." But he didn't let me finish. "I don't even want to hear it," he interrupted, voice trembling between anger and heartbreak. "After everything, maybe I should have known better. Maybe I should have known that someone like me could never really trust someone like you." And just like that, the look in his eyes changed, from fury to pain, and then to something worse, resignation. Adrian's POV. I pulled my hands away from James, who nearly lost his balance, but I barely noticed. My focus was on Lucas, whose face burned with anger and heartbreak. "Wait, this isn't what you think, please," I said, stepping closer to him. At my words, he flinched as if I had struck him. "So now you think I'm a fool?" His voice trembled with fury and pain. "I can't believe this, Adrian. After everything, how could you?" Before I could respond, he grabbed the door handle and yanked it open. The cold night air swept in, brushing against his face. He shivered but didn't move. I reached out, catching his arm gently, but he turned sharply toward me, his expression fierce. "You've made your point," he said, his voice rising. "I hurt you before and now you're returning the favor. Well, congratulations, you've succeeded. Now let me go." If I were anyone else, I might have stepped back. But I stood firm, keeping my tone calm. "Lucas, please," I said softly. "This is all a misunderstanding." Before I could finish, a slurred voice interrupted from behind me. "What's this? A lover's quarrel?" James muttered, stumbling toward us with an amused grin. He threw an arm lazily around my shoulders. "Hey, remember what I said? Once you fall for a man, there's no going back." He chuckled and gave my chest a playful pat. I groaned quietly. "James, not now." But it was too late. Lucas's eyes darkened, his body tensing like a spring ready to snap. Before I could explain, he wrenched his arm free from my grasp, and anger took over. His fist flew before I could react. The impact sent me stumbling backward. James crashed to the floor, and I lost my footing, falling beside him. My vision blurred for a moment, but when it cleared, I saw Lucas grab James by the collar and lift him effortlessly off the ground. "Lucas, stop!" I shouted, rushing forward. James was human. One hit from Lucas in his current state could be disastrous. Without thinking, I lunged, knocking Lucas off balance before he could throw a punch. We crashed to the floor, rolling across the tiles in a tangle of limbs. Lucas fought fiercely, blinded by rage and pain. I tried to restrain him, to make him listen, but it wasn't easy. He was stronger than most, even if I outranked him as a shapeshifter. "Lucas, calm down," I pleaded, dodging a swing. With one quick move, I wrapped my legs around his waist, flipped him, and pinned him beneath me. His wrists were trapped in my hands, pressed firmly against the floor. He struggled for a moment, but soon his resistance weakened. His breathing was ragged, heavy with frustration. "Are you done now?" I asked quietly, holding his gaze. He glared up at me, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Lucas, it's not what you think," I said gently. "I promise you." "Don't bother," he muttered, his voice breaking. "Do whatever you want. I don't care." I sighed, shaking my head. "If you didn't care, we wouldn't be here right now." For a long moment he said nothing. Then his body relaxed beneath me, and his expression softened. He turned his head to the side, his voice quieter now. "I shouldn't have said those things to you yesterday," he murmured. "It's okay," I replied softly. "I've already forgiven you." He exhaled slowly, covering his face with his hands. "I was cruel. Maybe I deserve this. Maybe I understand now why you'd turn to someone else." I followed his gaze toward James, who was still sprawled on the floor, fast asleep. "James is just a friend," I said. "He's in London for work. We met for a drink, that's all. He's not what you think." Lucas didn't respond right away. His eyes darted briefly to James, then back to me. I reached out, brushing my fingers lightly across his brow, smoothing his hair back without thinking. But then he looked up at me, and I froze. His eyes shimmered with tears, the rawness in his expression piercing me deeper than any words could. "Lucas," I whispered, startled. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold back the emotion. "I don't know why I feel like this," he said hoarsely. "The last time I felt anything like this was when—" He stopped mid-sentence, realization dawning in his eyes. "And then it hit me too. The last time was when Lakin broke your heart. I finished for him." Lucas didn't reply. He just turned away, sitting up slowly. His voice was quieter now, fragile. "I told myself I'd never let anyone hurt me again," he said. "I wasn't supposed to feel this way. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to be happy. After all, the man I loved had just confessed something I'd long suspected, but the moment was too heavy for joy." We both sat in silence, trying to make sense of everything. Finally, I spoke again, my voice steady. "Lucas, James is just a friend. You have to believe me." Lucas nodded faintly, though I could see the conflict in his eyes. His heart was still wrestling with what he'd just realized. Then, as the tension began to fade, I noticed something else. dark marks along the side of his neck. "What happened to you?" I asked, frowning. "Your neck, those look like bruises. Who did this to you?" His silence was all the answer I needed. Chapter 6. Adrian's POV. Lucas was lying to me. He stood there, calm and composed, looking me straight in the eye as if he hadn't just told me a story that didn't make sense. I wasn't sure if I should admire his ability to stay composed or be upset that he could deceive me so easily, but considering the situation, I had to go with the latter. "Will you stop looking at me like that? I told you, it probably happened while I was training one of my students." "It happens all the time," he said casually, placing the now dry plate into the cupboard. We'd finally eaten the meal he had cooked the night before, for breakfast of all times, and as usual, it was delicious. Cooking came naturally to Lucas. But right now, I wasn't focused on the food. I was focused on the bruises around his neck and the lie that came with them. "I can tell when you're not being honest, Lucas, and I don't appreciate it," I said, crossing my arms. "You're making a big deal out of nothing," he replied as he stacked another plate, his back to me. "Nothing?" I asked, disbelief creeping into my voice. "Have you seen your neck lately? It looks like someone actually tried to strangle you." He didn't even flinch. "I'm not going to hunt down whoever did this to you, if that's what you're worried about," I said, trying to sound casual. "At most, I'll just have a little talk with them." He turned toward me, unimpressed. "And how do you know it's a him?" My eyes widened. "Wait, you're saying a woman did this?" He rolled his eyes. "No. And I didn't let anyone do anything to me. That's what happens when you fight for a living, Adrian. You get hurt." He sounded frustrated now, and before I could say anything else, he grabbed his jacket. "Are you done with the interrogation? My family won't wait around forever." "Fine. We'll continue this later," I said as he sighed, heading for the door. We were visiting his family for dinner. Since it was a long drive, we had to leave early. I suggested taking my helicopter, faster and easier, but Lucas wanted to appear normal. As if his family hadn't already seen me countless times. I'd been to their house as often as he had, maybe more. They already knew I was wealthy, they just didn't know about the other side of my life. A helicopter wasn't going to change that. Last night, I found out that the love of my life felt the same way about me. But somehow, instead of joy, I was filled with jealousy. Lucas kept smiling at his phone, texting Lakin. Every buzz from his phone made me grip the steering wheel tighter. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about rolling down the window and tossing that phone out. But rather than start an argument we didn't need, I kept my focus on the road ahead. "Don't you have a gift to wrap?" I finally asked, unable to hold it in any longer. He looked up from his phone with a groan. We both knew wrapping gifts wasn't exactly his strong suit. Torn paper, crooked tape. It was always a mess until I stepped in. But today, I wanted him occupied. Wrapping a gift in a moving car seemed like the perfect distraction. You didn't have to buy her something. "Bree's always happy just to see you," Lucas said, referring to his 5-year-old sister. She was adorable, bright, bubbly, and the kind of child you couldn't help but love. I smiled. "I know, but she deserves to be spoiled once in a while." He reached for the dollhouse and the stuffed toy I'd bought earlier, along with wrapping paper, scissors, and tape. "How about I drive and you wrap?" he offered, hopeful. "Nice try," I said with a grin. Maybe a little payback for all the texting wouldn't hurt. 30 minutes later, I finally took pity on him and pulled over. He eagerly switched seats, happy to escape his tangled mess of tape and paper. I sighed, starting over to wrap the gift properly. Lucas, the fighter, the vigilante, the martial arts expert, defeated by tape and ribbon. He really was hopeless sometimes. The phone call came just as I finished wrapping the present. "This is Adrian," I answered automatically. "We've got a job for you, Corsetti." "A big one," said the familiar voice on the other end. My pulse quickened. "A job? Who's the target?" It had been 3 months since my last assignment. I was known for being precise, a sniper whose work left no loose ends. High-profile targets only. This could be another chance to test my skills. "This one's going to be tough," the voice continued. "Airtight security, both physical and digital." But I wasn't listening anymore. Lucas's jaw had tightened. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. He knew exactly what the call was about, and he wasn't happy. I sighed quietly. "Give the job to Coroni," I said. "I'm out." There was a long pause on the line. "Corsetti, are you serious? This one's perfect for you. Think of the—" "Give it to someone else," I interrupted. My tone made it clear there was no room for negotiation. When the call ended, I could feel the silence in the car. But then, Lucas reached over and took my hand, squeezing it gently. A small smile formed on his lips. A small price to pay, I thought. "Uncle Adri." The familiar, excited voice broke the tension the moment we arrived. Bree ran toward me, and I lifted her easily into my arms. "Hey, sweetheart. Wow, you've grown so much since I last saw you." She spread her little arms wide. "Like this much?" I laughed, kissing her cheek. "That's huge. Don't you want to say hi to Lucas?" I teased. "No," she said, smiling mischievously. "Gift, please?" Lucas chuckled. "You've spoiled her too much. Now she expects presents every time you visit." "That's okay," I said, tickling Bree's chin. "She deserves it, right, princess?" She giggled, thumb in her mouth, eyes sparkling. "Say hi to Lucas first while I go get your gift," I said, setting her down. "Lulu never gives me stuff," she pouted, but Lucas only smiled, kissing her cheek before walking her inside. The day went by peacefully. Bree adored her new toys, and the joy on her face was worth every mile of the trip. By evening, she had fallen fast asleep, and we spent the rest of the night catching up with Lucas's parents. Before we left, his mother pulled me aside, eyes shining with warmth. "You're good for him, Adrian," she said softly. "He's so happy now." "Thank you." And for the first time in a long while, my heart felt light. "Thank you, Sophia." "He makes me happy too," I told her sincerely. She pulled me into a warm hug, sniffling softly against my shirt. That was the moment Lucas walked in. When we broke apart, I saw him standing in the doorway, one eyebrow raised. After exchanging quick goodbyes, we left, hearts full, stomachs satisfied with his mother's delicious home-cooked meal, and ready for the long journey back. "You're staying over at my place tonight, right?" I asked as he drove out of his parents' driveway and onto the busy London street. "Yeah, I guess," he replied with a small grin. "But I'll have to leave early tomorrow morning. I have a student coming in for a private lesson." He gave me a pointed look, and I immediately knew what that meant. It was his gentle reminder that I shouldn't try to convince him to skip work again. I feigned innocence. "Who, me?" He chuckled, clearly not buying it. "Oh, and I didn't get the chance to tell you," Lucas continued. "My friend at the agency sent me another case file. Same pattern, armed robbery and murder. I'll be out of town for a few days starting Thursday." His eyes stayed on the road. "That's fine," I said. "I'll be busy this week anyway." And it was true. This was the week I'd planned to go over the offshore reports. Even with Marcus helping, it would take days. That's what happened when you ran a thriving operation, expanding from London to Australia and a significant portion of the US. The reports from the US division alone were a handful, especially after hearing last week that some of my men were attacked by werewolves. I hadn't made it a top priority yet, but it was definitely on my list. I couldn't allow rogue packs to threaten my people. Shapeshifters weren't common, and that imbalance was worrying. Werewolves seemed to dominate the supernatural world, and I wasn't looking forward to the day they decided they wanted control. Knowing their hunger for power, that day might not be far away. Other than Lucas's family, a few trusted friends, and my brothers, I didn't know many shapeshifters personally. Considering my influence, that said a lot. I turned to Lucas, thoughtful. "Do you know many shapeshifters?" He gave me a quick glance. "On a personal level?" "Not necessarily. Just in general." "Well, when Lakin's pack had that raid, I had to recruit quite a few. Most of them were referrals from my dad. Other than that, aside from you, your brothers, and my family, I'd say maybe 3 friends." "Why?" "Because I don't know many myself," I said. "It's unfortunate that there aren't a lot of us out there." "I wouldn't say that," Lucas replied. "They're probably just keeping a low profile. For all we know, We could pass by them every day and never realize it. He was right, of course. Every stray dog on the street or lone wolf in the woods could be a shapeshifter in disguise. Maybe one day I'd try to find and recruit them. There could be hundreds out there, hiding in plain sight. It wouldn't be easy, but not impossible. After all, our kind could only transform into dogs or wolves. With some effort and the right resources, we could track them down. I wasn't sure why thoughts of other shapeshifters came to mind again after all these years, but it started last night when I noticed the bruises on Lucas's neck. He was an exceptional fighter, one of the best. The only person capable of hurting him like that had to be another shapeshifter, possibly one stronger than him. No ordinary human could do that kind of damage. The strength of a shapeshifter was ranked in levels. Young ones began at level 1 and naturally progressed with age, up to level 4. Only through intense training could someone reach level 5, the highest recorded rank. Marcus was level 5. I was level 4, mostly because I never pushed myself further. Lucas was level 2. If my instincts were right, and they usually were, then whoever attacked Lucas was stronger than him. That didn't sit well with me. Not at all. I glanced at him, and when he sensed my gaze, he turned his head slightly, giving me a teasing wink before focusing on the road again. I smiled faintly. Whoever had hurt him would soon regret it. I'd make sure of that. Lucas's POV. He was finally asleep. I glanced at him in the passenger seat, his head tilted against his hand, his mouth slightly open. When he slept, all the weight he carried during the day seemed to fade. The sharp look in his eyes softened, the lines on his forehead relaxed, and he looked younger, peaceful even. I couldn't help but feel a quiet affection. As strange as it sounded, I loved seeing him like this. Today hadn't been easy. I could tell he'd been holding back questions about the bruises on my neck, and every time he looked at me, I felt the tension rise. It wasn't that I was protecting Marcus, far from it. I couldn't stand the man. But telling Adrian the truth would only start a conflict that didn't need to happen. Adrian was fiercely protective of the people he cared about. To him, I wasn't just a partner, I was his. And I didn't want a family feud over something as meaningless as a bruise. As the car rolled to a stop at a red light, I allowed myself to look at him again. His breathing was slow and steady, and every now and then, his nose would scrunch slightly in his sleep. I almost reached out to brush my fingers against his cheek, but stopped myself. He was a light sleeper. One touch, and he'd be awake. The light turned green. I pressed the gas and drove on, the city lights reflecting in the windshield as he slept quietly beside me, unaware of the secrets I carried. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.